are one. We are the human family, and that, as you see at the end, that's who we should pledge our allegiance to, our entire family, and to this beautiful home.
Francis Ford Coppola is one of cinema's great visionaries, a filmmaker whose name is etched into history alongside The Godfather, Apocalypse Now, and The Conversation. But beyond his sweeping stories, Coppola is an actor's director at heart. He's always understood that no matter how brilliant the script or how breathtaking the visuals, it's the performers who give a film its soul. Over a career spanning more than half a century, Coppola has worked with a dazzling range of talent, from unknowns he fought to cast to legends he grew up idolizing. His collaborations have produced some of the most unforgettable performances in movie history, and his admiration for actors is as deep and personal as his passion for directing. In this countdown, we'll reveal the 6 actors Coppola holds in the highest regard. Some were close friends, others creative partners, and a few were inspirations from afar. But all of them share one thing: they left a mark on Coppola that time can't erase. From fiery, unpredictable presences to masters of subtlety, these are the performers Coppola treasures most. The ones who, in his own words, shape the way he sees the art of acting. Number 6, Gene Hackman.
I couldn't do it. I didn't feel like I had never done that kind of action, tough.
Inspiring and magnificent. Gene Hackman might not have been a frequent collaborator with Francis Ford Coppola, but in the director's eyes, the man's talent was unforgettable. Their most significant work together came in The Conversation, 1974, a taut, paranoid thriller that Coppola not only directed, but also wrote. It was a film made between the first 2 Godfather epics, and yet it still stands as one of Coppola's proudest achievements, in no small part because of Hackman's performance. In the film, Hackman plays Harry Call, a quiet, meticulous surveillance expert who becomes consumed by the moral consequences of his work. There are no big speeches, no grand emotional outbursts, just layers upon layers of subtlety, as Hackman lets you feel Harry's growing paranoia through the smallest shifts in body language and tone. Coppola has often praised this as one of the most complex portrayals he's ever seen, calling Hackman a great actor, inspiring and magnificent in his work and complexity. What impressed Coppola wasn't just Hackman's technical skill, but the way he fully inhabited Harry Call's world. Hackman famously kept to himself on set, mirroring the isolation of his character. He didn't play Harry, he was Harry. The result was a performance so authentic that it won the Palme d'Or at Cannes for the film and earned Hackman a BAFTA for Best Actor. Coppola's admiration for Hackman also comes from the actor's career as a whole. Hackman was a master of versatility, equally convincing as the hard-nosed detective Popeye Doyle in The French Connection, as he was in quiet, character-driven dramas. In an era when many stars stuck to one type of role, Hackman defied easy categorization. Coppola respected that deeply. To him, Hackman wasn't chasing stardom. He was chasing truth in every performance. Another reason Hackman remains special to Coppola is his refusal to be anything other than himself. Hackman walked away from Hollywood in 2004, not because he couldn't get work, but because he simply decided he'd said what he needed to say through his acting. That kind of self-possession resonated with Coppola, who has always valued artistic integrity over box office numbers. Their collaboration on The Conversation may have been their most famous, but it wasn't their only connection. Coppola admired Hackman from afar, before and after that project, seeing in him the rare ability to disappear into a role without ego or self-promotion.
All right, Popeye's here. Get your hands on your heads. Get off the bar and get on the wall.
When Coppola recently reflected on Hackman's career, he didn't just praise his acting, he celebrated his existence and contribution to the art form. That's a remarkably personal thing to say, especially in an industry where compliments are often hollow. It's telling that in a list filled with longtime friends and recurring collaborators, Coppola still made space for Hackman. The inclusion says something important about Coppola's values. To him, even one perfect collaboration can leave an indelible mark. Hackman didn't need to be part of Coppola's inner circle to earn his lasting respect. In the grand sweep of Coppola's career, The Conversation is sometimes overshadowed by the Godfather films and Apocalypse Now. But for Coppola, it represents a moment when everything came together. His vision as a storyteller, his fascination with moral ambiguity, and Gene Hackman at the height of his powers. Hackman's Harry Caul remains one of the most haunting characters in 1970s cinema. A man as trapped by his conscience as he is by the walls of his soundproof workshop. Inspiring and magnificent isn't just praise. It's a director acknowledging that, for a brief moment, he got to work alongside an actor who could turn quietness into thunder. And for Coppola, that's the kind of artistry that never fades. Number 5, James Caan, Coppola's lifelong friend.
Nice college boy, huh? Didn't want to get mixed up in the family business?
When Francis Ford Coppola talks about James Caan, there's a warmth in his words that goes beyond the usual Hollywood compliments. For Coppola, Caan wasn't just an actor he directed. He was a friend, a collaborator, and part of the extended family that made The Godfather such a special chapter in cinema history. Their first major collaboration came in The Rain People, 1969, a road movie about loneliness and personal reinvention. Caan played a brain-damaged former football player, delivering a performance that showed unexpected vulnerability beneath his athletic frame and cocky charm. Coppola saw in Caan an actor who could blend toughness with emotional honesty, a rare combination that would serve them both well in the years to come. But it was The Godfather, 1972, that cemented their creative bond. As Sonny Corleone, Caan brought an electricity to every scene, embodying the hot-headed, fiercely loyal eldest son of the Corleone family. Coppola has often said that Caan's Sonny wasn't just acting, it was a force of nature. The way he moved, talked, and exploded with rage felt completely organic. That infamous toll booth scene where Sonny meets his violent end remains one of the most iconic moments in film history. What made Caan special to Coppola wasn't only his raw energy, but also his generosity on set. He could steal a scene with his charisma, but he was just as committed to supporting his fellow actors. Pacino, Brando, Duvall, they all thrived in part because Caan gave them something real to react to. Off-screen, Coppola and Caan shared a genuine friendship. They laughed, argued, and sometimes clashed, as strong personalities often do, but there was always mutual respect. Coppola described Caan as so alive and daring, a man who approached life with the same fearless spirit he brought to his roles.
No, I think I'm the only one, but I think they're going to put a stop to that.
He called him a great actor, a brilliant director, and my dear friend, noting that their bond lasted decades. When James Caan passed away in 2022, Coppola's tribute was heartfelt and deeply personal. He spoke not only of Caan's talent, but also of the joy he brought into people's lives. His films and the many great roles he played will never be forgotten, Coppola wrote. Those words weren't just public mourning. They were the kind of affectionate farewell you give to someone who made a lasting mark on your own story. Coppola also appreciated Caan's range as an actor. While Sonny Corleone remains his most famous role, Caan proved he could do much more, from romantic leads in films like Chapter 2 to understated dramas and comedies. Coppola admired how Caan refused to be boxed in, how he followed his instincts rather than chasing trends. In many ways, James Caan embodied the kind of actor Coppola loves to work with, bold, instinctive, and deeply human. He wasn't afraid to take risks, whether that meant improvising a scene or bringing an unpolished, rough-edge quality to a polished Hollywood production. That authenticity, that refusal to fake it, resonated with Coppola, whose own filmmaking has always been about capturing truth on screen. Looking back, Coppola's collaborations with Caan feel like snapshots of a friendship played out in front of the camera. The Rain People showed Caan's sensitive side. The Godfather unleashed his fiery energy. And behind the scenes, they shared the kind of creative trust that directors and actors dream of finding. For Coppola, James Caan wasn't just a favorite actor. He was a reminder that the best performances come from people you believe in, both professionally and personally. In honoring Caan, Coppola isn't just remembering a colleague. He's remembering a brother in art, someone who gave his all every time the cameras rolled. And for a director who values loyalty above almost anything else, that's the highest compliment of all. Number 4, Al Pacino, the protégé Coppola fought for.
Say hello to my little friend.
When Francis Ford Coppola tells the story of casting The Godfather, it always circles back to one crucial decision: fighting for Al Pacino. Today, Pacino is one of the most celebrated actors in history, but in 1971, he was a relatively unknown stage performer. The studio wanted a big, bankable name to play Michael Corleone. Coppola wanted Pacino, and he was willing to risk everything to make it happen. The problem was that Paramount Pictures didn't see Pacino as a leading man. At just over 5 feet 7 inches, with no major film hits to his name, he seemed like a gamble, especially for a movie they expected to be a sprawling, high-stakes epic. Coppola, however, saw something in Pacino's quiet intensity, the way he could hold an audience with stillness and subtlety. To Coppola, Michael Corleone wasn't a flashy character. He was a man who transformed from reluctant outsider to ruthless leader, and Pacino had exactly the right kind of smoldering presence to make that arc believable. Pacino himself has recalled that no one other than Francis wanted me for the part. The studio floated names like Robert Redford and Ryan O'Neal, handsome, well-known stars who fit the Hollywood mold. But Coppola kept pushing back. He knew the story demanded authenticity over glamour. The fight to keep Pacino wasn't easy. Coppola has admitted he was nearly fired multiple times during the early production days, partly because of his insistence on casting Pacino. In fact, during the shoot, the studio was so unhappy with the dailies, the raw footage, that they considered replacing him mid-film. Coppola responded by staging the restaurant scene, the moment when Michael calmly executes two men in cold blood, much earlier than planned. That scene was the turning point. It silenced the doubters and proved that Pacino could command the screen with chilling authority. Their creative partnership didn't stop with The Godfather. Pacino reprised the role in The Godfather Part 2 and The Godfather Part 3, each time deepening Michael's complexity. Coppola has often praised Pacino's dedication, his ability to disappear into a role without vanity, and his willingness to do whatever it took to serve the story. Coppola's respect for Pacino also stems from their shared view of filmmaking as a collaborative, art-driven process. Pacino wasn't about playing the star. He was about serving the character. Coppola valued that humility, especially in an industry where ego often gets in the way. In interviews, Coppola has referred to Pacino as one of the legends who made The Godfather possible, and he still credits Pacino's performance as a defining element of the trilogy's success.
I know it was you, Fredo. You broke my heart. You broke my heart.
Off-camera, their relationship was marked by mutual trust. Pacino has spoken about how Coppola created an environment where actors felt safe to take risks. He gave them space to explore while also guiding them with a clear vision. That balance allowed Pacino to deliver some of the most memorable performances of his career under Coppola's direction. Even decades later, Coppola remains fiercely proud of standing his ground back in 1971. In his eyes, betting on Pacino wasn't just the right creative decision, it was the move that gave The Godfather its soul. Michael Corleone's transformation from a quiet war hero to a calculating crime boss is one of cinema's great character arcs. And without Pacino, it might never have resonated the same way. For Coppola, Pacino is more than just a favorite actor. He's proof that sometimes the best choice is the one nobody else sees coming. It's a lesson in trusting your instincts, even when the pressure is on and the stakes are high. And it's a reminder that in the right director's hands, the right actor can change not only a movie, but also the course of film history. Number 3, Laurence Olivier, the best actor in the world.
And all the clouds that lowered upon our house in the deep bosom of the ocean.
Francis Ford Coppola is a filmmaker who has worked with some of the greatest talents alive. But when it comes to pure admiration from afar, few actors have impressed him more than Laurence Olivier. What's fascinating is that Coppola never actually worked with Olivier, yet still calls him one of the best actors who ever lived. In Coppola's mind, Olivier represents the gold standard of acting, the kind of performer who could command a stage or screen with unmatched authority. When casting The Godfather, Coppola faced a daunting challenge. Who could possibly embody Vito Corleone, the elder statesman of a powerful crime family? He needed someone with gravitas, someone whose very presence told you they'd seen everything, survived it all, and still had the strength to run an empire. Coppola later explained, "We finally figured that what we had to do was hire the best actor in the world. It boiled down to Laurence Olivier or Marlon Brando." That's not a casual statement. Coppola was literally ranking Olivier at the very top of the craft. By that point, Olivier's career had already spanned decades. He was the definitive Shakespearean actor of his generation, dazzling audiences in Hamlet, Othello, Henry V, and countless others. His ability to bring classical technique to film without losing intimacy was a revelation for younger filmmakers like Coppola. Olivier was a master of transformation. He could be regal and commanding one moment, then vulnerable and human the next. Coppola admired that versatility, understanding how rare it was for an actor to have both technical precision and emotional depth. To Coppola, Olivier wasn't just a performer. He was a living example of how far the art of acting could be pushed. It's worth noting that Olivier's name came up during one of the most important casting decisions of Coppola's life. Imagine the fork in the road. If Olivier had been available and willing, we might have seen him as Vito Corleone instead of Brando. The fact that Coppola even considered him for the part tells you how much respect he had. Ultimately, Olivier's health and schedule kept him from the role, but Coppola never stopped speaking of him in reverent tones. Beyond The Godfather, Coppola often referenced Olivier when discussing what makes an actor truly great. It wasn't just about delivering lines. It was about living in the skin of the character, understanding their psychology so completely that the performance feels inevitable. Olivier had that ability in spades. Whether he was playing a king, a villain, or an everyman, he brought a level of commitment that inspired generations of actors. For Coppola, Olivier also represented a bridge between eras.
Ow! Ow! Oh, you are men of stones.
The elegance and formality of classical theater blending with the emotional honesty that modern audiences craved. That fusion influenced Coppola's own directing style. Even though he favored naturalism, he respected the discipline and rigor Olivier brought to the craft. It reminded him that great performances don't just happen. They're built with skill, preparation, and a deep respect for the material. It's almost poetic that Coppola, a director known for championing unconventional casting choices, still holds such admiration for someone who was, in many ways, the ultimate establishment actor. It shows that his love for acting goes beyond trends, genres, or personal connections. For Coppola, great acting is timeless, and Laurence Olivier is proof. In the end, while Coppola never got to direct him, Olivier's shadow loomed large over Coppola's most important work. Simply knowing that actors of Olivier's caliber existed pushed him to demand more from his own cast. And in Coppola's book, that kind of influence is just as valuable as any on-set collaboration. Number 2, Paul Muni, Coppola's acting idol. When Francis Ford Coppola talks about acting royalty, he doesn't just name the usual modern icons. He goes back further, to the golden age of Hollywood. And for him, one name towers above almost everyone else: Paul Muni. Now, Paul Muni isn't as widely recognized today as Brando or Pacino, but in his time, he was a giant. A 1930s and 1940s star known for disappearing into his roles, Muni was a master of transformation decades before method acting became a buzzword. He could be a Scarface gangster one year, Scarface 1932, and a Nobel Prize-winning scientist the next, The Story of Louis Pasteur 1936. Every performance was different, not just in costume or accent, but in the way he inhabited the character's soul. Coppola has openly said, Paul Muni is arguably the greatest actor of modern times. That's not just fan talk, it's a clear acknowledgement that Muni's artistry shaped the way Coppola sees acting. Coppola also pointed out that even Marlon Brando, the man he calls a genius, looked up to Muni as his own inspiration. In Coppola's eyes, Muni set the standard for what acting could be: complete immersion, authenticity, and transformation. What set Muni apart, and what Coppola admired so deeply, was his commitment to detail. Muni wasn't content to play a part. He studied it, lived it. If he was portraying a historical figure, he'd research their life exhaustively. If it was a fictional character, he'd build a psychological backstory so rich that every gesture felt natural. Coppola's own directing style, encouraging actors to find their own truth in a role, owes a lot to this philosophy. Coppola also loved that Muni refused to be typecast. In an era when Hollywood loved to pigeonhole actors, Muni fought for variety. He was as comfortable in gritty crime dramas as he was in historical epics. That fearlessness resonated with Coppola, who has spent his career jumping between genres, from mob sagas to war epics to gothic romance. To Coppola, versatility isn't just a skill, it's proof of a real artist. Another reason Coppola reveres Muni is the emotional honesty in his performances. Even when playing larger-than-life characters, Muni found a way to make them human. In The Life of Emile Zola, his portrayal of the famed writer isn't just a historical reenactment, it's a portrait of a man wrestling with moral conviction. Coppola has always said the best acting makes you forget you're watching acting at all.
King of chicken carrot. If I had some of them, I could run the whole works in a month.
And Muni achieved that consistently. It's also worth noting that Coppola's admiration comes with a sense of protectiveness. He feels Muni's genius isn't celebrated enough today. While Brando, Olivier, and Pacino still dominate film school discussions, Muni has faded from mainstream conversation. Coppola's repeated tributes to him are his way of keeping that legacy alive, making sure new generations know who paved the way for modern acting. For Coppola, Paul Muni wasn't just another great actor. He was the blueprint, the discipline, the adaptability, the complete commitment to craft. All of it resonates with Coppola's own ideals. And though the two never met, Muni's shadow looms over Coppola's work. You can see it in the way Coppola pushes his actors to transform, to dig deeper, to surprise themselves and the audience. In Coppola's personal Hall of Fame, Paul Muni is right near the top. Not because he was famous, but because he was fearless. And for a director who's built his career on bold choices, that's the ultimate compliment. Number 1. Marlon Brando, the genius legend. For Francis Ford Coppola, the top spot could belong to no one else. Marlon Brando isn't just one of his favorite actors. He's the man who changed Coppola's life, his career, and arguably the entire landscape of modern cinema. By the time Coppola approached Brando to play Don Vito Corleone in The Godfather, 1972, Brando's career was in a strange place. He was still a legend from a streetcar named Desire and On the Waterfront, but his reputation for being difficult had made studios wary. Paramount executives were flat out against casting him. Coppola, however, saw what others didn't. Brando was the only actor alive who could give Vito the depth, humanity, and quiet menace the role demanded. The studio told Coppola, no way. Coppola told them, then I quit. That's how fiercely he believed in Brando. To prove his point, Coppola invited Brando to a private test. Not a formal audition, but an experiment. Brando, in a quiet act of genius, transformed himself in front of the camera, stuffing tissue paper in his cheeks, slicking back his hair, lowering his voice to a whisper.
You talk about vengeance. Is vengeance gonna bring your son back to you? Or my boy to me? I forgo the vengeance of my son.
In just minutes, Vito Corleone was born. Coppola took the tape to Paramount and said, "This is the Godfather." They couldn't argue. On set, Coppola found Brando's process unlike anyone else's. He didn't act in the traditional sense. He inhabited. Props became extensions of his thought process. The cat in the opening scene was a last-minute improvisation, and it made the moment unforgettable. Coppola has often said Brando worked entirely on instinct, sometimes ignoring the script's exact words, but always delivering emotional truth. Their collaboration didn't stop there. In Apocalypse Now, 1979, Coppola brought Brando back to play Colonel Kurtz. Brando arrived overweight and underprepared, sending the production into chaos. But Coppola refused to panic. He adjusted the shoot, using shadow and mystery to turn Brando's physical state into an asset. The result? One of the most haunting, hypnotic performances in film history. Coppola has called Brando a genius, not just because of his talent, but because of his mind. He was endlessly curious, politically engaged, and unafraid to challenge the system. Brando's refusal to play by Hollywood's rules inspired Coppola to follow his own instincts as a filmmaker, even when it meant clashing with executives or risking his career. Off camera, Coppola remembers Brando with deep affection. He's called him one of the funniest guys he ever knew, someone who could break the tension with a perfectly timed joke. There was a mutual respect between them that went beyond the usual actor-director relationship. Brando nicknamed Coppola the Kid, a gesture that blended warmth with a bit of playful condescension. But it stuck, and Coppola wore it proudly. Even decades later, Coppola speaks of Brando with a mix of reverence and gratitude. He knows The Godfather wouldn't be the same, and maybe wouldn't have been made at all, without Brando. That performance won Brando an Oscar, revitalized his career, and cemented Coppola's reputation as a director willing to fight for his vision. For Coppola, Brando embodied everything he loves about acting: fearlessness, truth, unpredictability, and an ability to make the audience feel like they're watching real life, not a performance. In his eyes, there will never be another quite like him. When Coppola calls Marlon Brando a genius, it's not hyperbole. It's a statement of fact from someone who's worked with the best and still puts Brando at the top. That's why, out of all the legends he's admired, Brando reigns supreme. In the end, Francis Ford Coppola's list isn't just about famous names. It's about loyalty, respect, and the magic that happens when the right actor meets the right role. From the raw power of Gene Hackman to the genius of Marlon Brando, each one left an indelible mark on Coppola's life and films. These weren't just collaborators. They were inspirations, friends, and in some cases, the reason a movie became legendary. Coppola's deep admiration reminds us that great cinema is a shared art, and when the bond between director and actor is real, the results can last forever.